Welcome back, humble traders. Today I'll be doing a technical breakdown on SPY and QQQ. Before I begin, remember take a second to give the video a like and subscribe as you're greatly help on the channel. Do note that I do not provide any buy or sell calls, but focus on the potential traps set up by the market makers. Without further ado, let's take a look at SPY. So SPY once again is testing this low of 410, and we have closed the wick at the very bottom. So once we close the wick at the very bottom, it's not a good sign because it shows that sellers are dominating throughout the week, and it shows that we have ended the month on a very weak closing. So where exactly are my potential supports coming in for SPY? You can see that there is a potential double bottom here, and we may potentially go up. But even if we do go up, I'm afraid it is just a dead cat bounce before we have a bigger drop. So of course, this 400 psychological support will act as a very, very strong psychological support that many people wouldn't miss. But the fact that it is so strong, I'm afraid that the market makers will definitely break this 400 psychological support to actually test this perhaps 380 to 390, when majority of the retail investors may be putting their stop losses just below their psychological support. And short traders may also start to short below this 400 critical psychological support. So let's take a look at the corrective waves. So you can see that this was the first wave down from a high of about 480 to a low of 410. So this is the first wave down. Second wave, we may be looking at around at these levels here at around 390. So 390 is just below this 400 psychological support, 390 as the first support. So let's take a look at where exactly are the Fibonacci support levels. You can see that this was the low of March 2020, which was around 217, and this was a high of around 480. So let's take a look at the Fibonacci. So if you do the Fibonacci retracement, you can see that this 424 was in fact holding pretty well for a few occasions. So this 424 was the 78.6% support. You can see that there was certain bounces of this particular support levels. We saw the first bounce here. After that, we actually broke this support, but we went back up once again. However, now it seems that we have broken down this 78.6% support, and we are in a very bearish territory. So next, we will be looking at this 61.8%, which is this 380.44. So this 380 is a very, very critical Fibonacci that we have to hold. Of course, we can break intraday at around maybe 370, 375 around these levels, but if we are able to close back above it, or if the very next day we can go back above 380, then potentially this may be the short-term bottom for SPY. If you look on the weekly charts will tell us a very interesting perspective. So you can see that this on the weekly charts, the cloud will act as a very, very strong support on the way down. So on the way down, the cloud acts as a support. On the way up, the cloud acts as a potential resistance. So if you look at the cloud area, you can see that we are breaking through this cloud just below this 400 and 390 area. So 380 to 390 is a potential stop hunting, where market makers will try to ensure that the retail investors actually cut their losses at this area. So there's a very high tendency from 380 to 390, we may see some potential bottom for SPY in the short run. So let's take a look at QQQ. Let's see whether it's any better. So QQQ, you can see that on the weekly charts, it's very similar to SPY, even though it's more weakness ahead. You can see that this critical support at 318 was in fact broken, and we created a new low. And even this 313 was the week low, and we closed at the week low. So very similar pattern. Let's take a look at the corrective waves on the daily charts. So you can see that on the daily charts, this is the first wave down, and on the second wave down, we are looking at the low of perhaps around 280. So it's very easy to remember. SPY is 380 and QQQ is at 280. Of course, it can fall further and we wouldn't know. This 300 is a very critical psychological support that we have to hold, but considering the fact it is so strong, it's likely for us to break it eventually. You can see that this was the previous resistance here. So previous resistance will likely turn to support. You can see that this support here was also being supported at this 300 psychological support. However, I do expect more downside. You can see on the, let's take a look at the Fibonacci on the Fibonacci retracements from a high of 409 to a low of March 2020, and this low was perhaps around 165. So clearly you can see that there's more weakness on the QQQ compared to SPY, perhaps due to the tech stocks that have taken a hit. So you can see that this 78.6%, 356.88 did not hold at all. There was some struggles at these levels, but we did not hold above it. So next up is actually the 61.8%, which is currently where we are trading. But it seems that we have broken down. You can see that this 61.8% hold pretty well. In fact, we had a good bounce, and we held pretty well at this support. So next up, where exactly is this particular support that we are looking at? So we need to retreat back to this 50%, which is this 287, just below this $300 psychological support. So it's likely to be broken, and just below this 300 at around 280, 290 is the best opportunity for market makers to flush out all retail investors and to ensure that the stop losses are being triggered. So let's take a look at the weekly charts to get a better idea. So similarly, on the weekly charts, you can see that we have already broken down the clouds, and when we are breaking down the clouds, it's not a good sign. We can expect more downside ahead, perhaps next week or even the second week of May. So you can see that we already started breaking out the clouds compared to SPY. SPY is barely breaking the clouds, and QQQ is really breaking the clouds. So it's likely for us to be heading to 287 levels in the upcoming sessions. So just a quick recap. For QQQ, is not looking good, likely to be heading below this 300 psychological support levels. As for SPY, on the other hand, it's slightly more cushion. Before is slightly more cushion compared to QQQ, but I do expect more downside ahead, and this $400 will likely to be threatened in the upcoming sessions before we are likely to test this 380 and 390 Fibonacci support levels. And if there's any changes, I'll give you guys an update. Thanks for stopping by. And don't forget to subscribe as you keep the uptrend channel intact. Leave a comment below if you have any other stock TA requests. Till we meet again, appreciate the manipulation.